Hello, everyone, and welcome to Locked On Flames. Today, we are going to be talking about how the Flames have cauterized that wound of losing and how they did it today on Locked On Flames.
You're Locked On Flames, your daily podcast on the Calgary Flames. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Locked On Flames, or welcome to Locked On Flames. I'm your host, Jess Belmosto, joined with my partner in crime, Nick Zararis. Today, we are going to be talking all about the Flames overcoming this god-awful 7-game slump and this upcoming trip to the East Coast, which is going to be a test for them, and also a reunification between Matthew Tkachuk and the Calgary Flames. But let's dive right into today's episode. Nick, how do you feel? 2 wins after that.
When you're losing at like the way the Flames were, where every game it just kind of felt like you were waiting for the other shoe to drop no matter what, where you have a multi-goal lead, you blow it. You have a 1-goal lead, you blow it. You get blown out. When you are in that kind of slump where everything is going wrong, to win 2 in a row, and the win against the Kings was pretty ugly. The win the other day, that was pretty ugly. But at that point, you'll take them any way you can get them. That's the biggest thing, is just stabilizing here. It's battlefield medicine. When you're about to die, if you can stop the bleeding for a few minutes and save somebody and buy them a couple more minutes, that way you can operate on them a little bit more. That's what the Flames were after losing 7 in a row.
Absolutely. And, we had talked about last time you were on about how they just needed to go out there and score 6 or 7 goals.
Yeah.
And they did it. That is what I was thinking the entire game. I was like, they're going to do exactly what the hockey genius over here at Locked On Flames said. And, I think that does give them some confidence. I think it will help. They had 5 even strength goals, which I just wanted to kiss them all and say, look at you. Here are your gold stars. Like, my God. And, it wasn't just one line. It was all 4. So that's even better. What has been the biggest difference maker, do you think?
Number one, they got some good luck for once. When you're in a slump like that, you're going to have bad luck seemingly keep piling up on you, where every little bounce goes against you when you're in a slump like that. And to score 4 goals at even strength, to score 6 goals in a game, you're getting good bounces. That's a statistical outlier where you're going to have a game where 15-20% of the shots you take go in the net. Most of the time, that's not going to happen. You got that. And you had Markstrom make a couple really big saves at key points in those games. The save he made in the Kings game, I think there were about 40 seconds left, where if that went in, that would have tied the game and it would have went to overtime. He saved them there. That was really important. That he still isn't playing amazing, but if he can just stabilize a little bit, that's what they need right now, is just to stabilize the situation. It's very early. There's plenty of time left. The rest of the West, especially the Pacific Division, doesn't look too great. So there's plenty of time to sort everything out. But it's encouraging that they were able to rattle off 2 in a row against okay teams. The Kings are nothing special. It's fine. But just stabilizing the situation here, not letting it get away from you, because you could end up in a situation like the Islanders last year, where they lost 10 in a row in November, and that was it. Their season was over.
Yeah.
There was no coming back from that. You cut it off at 7. All right. You reassess. You got a couple of days off here going into your next game, and you'll see what happens. But you got to be encouraged that you got some good breaks, both in terms of goaltending and good shooting luck, which was bound to happen because they had been in a really bad shooting slump for the last 2 weeks before the 2 wins.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for them, like, Tyler Toffoli has just been one of the players that I haven't been able to take my eyes off of in terms of, when he has the puck on his stick, he's not afraid to shoot. And, they might not always be the prettiest shots, but they don't have to be. I think we've all seen some pretty questionable shots go in the net or go just wide this season. So, I mean, why not? And, you know, like you said, it's early, but they're not out of the woods.
No.
They're
No,
not.
I mean, the big thing, and we'll talk about it more in the next segment, we're comparing how they're playing big picture wise versus this year versus last year. The biggest thing is the defense is not nearly as good as it was last year, and that's really been the most obvious thing because you're playing defense more, you're on offense less. Even if you're generating the same amount of offense as you were last year, if you have fewer opportunities to create offense, it's not creating the same amount of offense as last year, which has kind of been the thing so far this year. Is they're not getting as lucky because they're not generating as much offense. So the fewer chances they are generating, they're not as valuable. You're getting less lucky because there's less total chances to get lucky in. And it turns into a very basic math problem, which is the thing here. Even if you're shitty at math like I am, you can put everything out here and make it work. You can make things work for you. They need more opportunities to score. And that's the thing. More opportunities to score, the better chance you have of good luck happening.
Absolutely. And, you said that we're going to talk more about it coming up in this next segment. And I definitely want to pose the question of Eric Goodbranson and his departure, but also his kind of not so great start in Columbus. But before we do that, let's talk about Built Bar. Today's episode is brought to you by Built Bar, so thank you so much. You got to try some of these. Nick, now that you're part of the Locked On team, you will be getting these, and there are so many ways to enjoy Built Bars. You can freeze them. You can put them in your shakes. Jay from Locked On Blue Jackets melts them and makes a little protein shake dessert sort of thing. I'm here for it. But this time of year is the perfect time to enjoy the white chocolate peppermint granola. It's built take on granola bars, so it's more filling and still insanely tasty. And to fit the season even more, they have a candy cane brownie puff. Please deliver those on my doorstep yesterday. Built is for anyone. I love it because, it's quick and easy. Take it on the go in between the gym and work or class and work. Just the perfect way to sink your teeth into something that is just delicious, honestly. It is good for you. It is covered in 100% real chocolate, has about 17 grams of protein and low sugar, and only really has 130 calories. So definitely worth fitting into your daily routine. And you can try Built Bar or Built Puffs or Built Granola, whatever you desire, at built.com, and you can get 15% off your order right now by using code LOCKEDON15 at built.com. The great thing is you have a few months to prepare for the March Madness. So you can try all of these. They do these brackets for the month of March. So head on over and get 15% off your order right now by using code LOCKEDON15 at built.com. The Flames. The Flames. What? Is there truly a reason for people to be writing this team off? 7-6-2.
It's November. No, I know everybody does the American Thanksgiving stat, and we talked about this when I was here last week. 30% of the teams still don't make the playoffs that are in playoff spots. Yeah, there are statistical outliers. The Flames more than likely will play themselves into one of the wild cards or one of the top 3 seeds in the Pacific Division, just based on the long term. I don't know if Seattle is going to be viable as a playoff team with .895 goaltending. I don't know if Stuart Skinner is actually this good as the Oilers goalie. There are a lot of things to figure out, and the longer the season goes on, the closer you're going to get to the truest outcome, meaning the larger your sample of evidence, the more likely you're going to be able to come out with a solid conclusion. Right now, we're only 15 games into things. It's very early to be making declarative assessments on anything right now. It's why, even though we're about to start talking a little more nuanced statistic stuff, you got to say it with a grain of salt. It's only been a month and a half of a season. It's only been 15 games. A lot of teams still aren't what they're going to look like. The Flames probably have another move or two to make if they really consider themselves a playoff team, like most playoff teams do come the deadline, even if it is only adding a seventh defenseman or an extra forward, that kind of thing. It's really hard to make final judgments this early because most teams aren't what they are going to be post deadline. That's another thing people forget when we talk about the Thanksgiving stat that most hockey writers like to use.
Yeah, definitely. And, I think that there were a lot of moving pieces this off season.
Yes.
And the Flames, you don't just go out there and pick up where you left off, especially, even if it's the same group of guys. But now you're bringing in new people, taking key pieces away. You have to go out there and find that chemistry. And the Flames defense is, it was one of the best in the NHL last year. It was just so smooth and cohesive and just a model for what every team should be copying. We know the NHL is a copycat league, and everyone wanted to be the Flames defense, and I don't blame them. But this year, two people are gone pretty much. I mean, Oliver Shillington is away from the team for personal reasons. Brad Treliving gave an update and basically said, we're giving him the space and privacy he needs during this time. We hope he comes back this season. So you don't know. Yeah. And Eric Goodbranson left. Signed a 4-year, $4 million deal with Columbus. And, was Eric Goodbranson really that vital? Did he play that well in a Daryl Sutter system?
So a few parts of this, and one of the things that I have in the rundown there and in my notes here is just the amount each defenseman played. Last year, Zadorov played the 6th or 7th most minutes of any defenseman on the team. This year, he's playing the 3rd most minutes. That's a dramatic increase in workload. Last year, him and Goodbranson is the 3rd pair, 13 minutes a game, 14 minutes a game. That's a lot lighter of a workload. It's part of why Branson hasn't played as well in Columbus, because they're asking him to play more and in more situations. The more you put an average player out there or a below average player out there, the more they are going to be exposed. That's really what it comes down to right now for the Flames. Yeah. And I understand part of that is that Chris Tanev has been hurt. He hasn't been able to stay in the lineup. So that forces everybody to play up a slot further than they would like to. Mackenzie Weegar still hasn't totally settled in. Anderson and Hannafin are getting there. You're starting to see that rhythm form that they had last year when they were one of the best defensive pairs in the entire league, but they still got to figure out the rest. I mean, it's great to have your first pair ironed out. That's 24 or 25 minutes a game. You still got to solve the other 35 minutes of the game. I mean, when you think about your defensive pairs, you typically want to divide it up into 25-ish to realistically 23, 24 minutes for your first pair, low 20, 21 for your second pair. And then your third pair is whatever's left. And then your penalty kill power play, filling up time as you divide it wherever you like it, depending on if your third pair guys are better at defense, offense, whatever. Right. But generally speaking, you want to think about your defensive deployment in terms of splitting up the game into thirds. And then the bigger pieces you want to give to your better defensemen. And right now the Flames have 3 good defensemen because they have a lot of guys rotating in based on injuries and availability.
I don't know. It's such a big difference from last year. Like the drop off and like you mentioned, the increase in workload is concerning.
Yeah.
Especially like, I don't know, Nikita Zadorov I think that he has come not miles, but he has taken steps forward in his gameplay. I think that one thing he does need to work on is avoiding penalties, but it's okay. You're 6'2", you're big, and Daryl Sutter likes you, so you'll never be benched. I definitely want to see more and more from the defenseman as a whole. I don't want to see another goal be deflected off of Rasmus Andersson and basically scoring an own goal, because I I think we had 2 of those in the playoffs, and they've haunted me ever since. And I'm concerned.
Yeah.
Because what if Chris Tanev just can't, knock on wood, but what if he can't stay healthy? What if that injury was so significant that it kind of did start a downward spiral for him, and he already was suffering from
Oh
being a
no,
quote unquote injury prone player?
absolutely. I mean, he was outstanding the other night in the win. In the
Yes.
win last week, he was outstanding in the first win of the 2-game win streak. I mean, Jay
Against
Fresh,
Winnipeg.
yeah, Jay Fresh highlighted him, had like the 4-minute player of the night reel for him for the game he had. I think they said 97% of the expected goals when Tanev was on the ice. He was lights out, outstanding. The Flames controlled the flow of the game basically the entirety of the time he was on the ice. The other thing we can talk about in terms of defense is they're having to kill penalties more. They're taking they're taking about a minute more penalties this year versus last year, and it's harder to play hockey at 4-on-5 than at 5-on-5.
Yeah.
And the goaltending has not been as good on the penalty kill. Last year on the penalty kill, it was, where is it? I wrote it down here. Oh, last year it was 86%. This year, no, last year was 87%. This year, 86%. 1% does not sound like a lot, but that's like one extra goal every 2 games, every 3 games. That
Right.
adds up over the course of an entire season. So ideally, you're going to give up fewer of those chances. You got to stop taking the dumb penalties. And granted, they still were in the top 10 of penalty minutes per game last year because the way they play, the slowness of their defensemen, it makes them prone to taking bad penalties. But you got to clean up that stuff because you already know your goalie isn't playing as well as it was last year. And then to make him kill more penalties, your goalie is your best penalty killer. It's a cliche that hockey heads like to say, but it is true.
It's 100% true.
Yeah.
I It's so frustrating
Yeah.
because, like, the defense again, I think when a lot of people tune into hockey, like casuals, they're more inclined to watch the offense
Yeah.
because but there was something that really, like, I feel like drew eyes to the Flames defense last year, especially like when I was watching, not to like call myself a casual because I mean I'm here every day, but like you watched them more and you could see just how they controlled the game. And then this year, it's like I'm almost convinced you would be better without some of you on the ice, but can't do that. So, it's just one of those things that they're going to have to work through, and hopefully Chris Tanev stays healthy. Even Michael Stone coming back would be a difference maker.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely, definitely. You got to sort out the defense because it's the biggest difference between this year and last year. The offensive statistics, the rate stat stuff of just like scoring chances, expected
Mhm.
goals, high danger chances, they're all more or less the same within, 1 or 2 in each category. So that goes to show you it's just a matter of they're not playing as much offense as they were last year. They're having to play a little bit more defense. They're taking a little bit more penalties. That's really the difference between this team and last year. And they're not getting as lucky with shooting percentage by about 1-2% as they were last year. And the power play is not scoring as much as it was last year. That's really the other thing that we haven't touched on yet about big difference between this year and last year is the power play. Not nearly as finishing. I wrote it down here. Last year was 12.8%. This year it's 12.8%. It's only off by 2 decimal points. But when you go in and look game by game, the big difference is they're not creating as dangerous of chances on the power play because they don't have the below the net stuff they had last year with Johnny or with Matt running the offense through those guys. And when you orient your entire offense around an elite player, it helps to have said elite player. They've kind of had to recalibrate what they want to do offensively, especially on the power play without Matt and Johnny to run the offense through. You're seeing a lot more shots from the point from Rasmus Anderson on the man advantage. Those are less likely to result in goals because they're from further away from a less dangerous shooter. It's frustrating, but at the same time, you're seeing signs of life.
Right.
The encouraging thing before we get to the next part here is just you saw, okay, they were mired in a slump. And Daryl said, all right, let's put Huberdeau on the third line. Let's shuffle up our lines here a little bit. Let's get creative and let's see if we can spur some offense. And it worked. It worked.
Yeah, it did. And, that's just, you have to try. And I feel like I'm one of those people that is like, why is like this happening? Why are these people so high in the lineup? And why is this guy down here? If it works, it works. And just leave it. Just don't stop questioning. Just let it happen. And we are going to talk about some of these issues that need corrective actions and how we as fans can sit here and look for those and just kind of what to keep an eye out for going into this weekend. And thank you, everyone, for tuning into Locked On Flames. You can follow us on Twitter at LO_FlamesPod. So, this team last year got very lucky in terms of injuries.
Yes.
Through the regular season, I don't think most of this team, if any players, really missed a stretch of games. Like they weren't hurting. This year, Jonathan Huberdeau gets hurt. Daryl Sutter made a joke about him going to the bathroom, and he was actually on the trainer's table. And I guess that didn't land well with the room, but I get it. Chris Tanev came back from significant surgery ahead of schedule and is already missing time. And I don't want to say who's next, but you have to start thinking about that and thinking about, what do you do in a situation where, Mangiapane just, pulled hamstring, so he's got to rest for a day or two. Who are you calling up? Because you cannot shuffle these lines and get the success you need. I don't know.
It's a real challenge. I mean, this is the danger of being a very good team in the NHL. Typically, you're not drafting highly in the draft. You're not going to be in a position to draft guys who are close to ready for NHL action. You don't have a ton of salary cap space, so you can't trade a future draft pick to bring in somebody to fill in one of those gaps until closer to the deadline, when you can prorate the salary and then entice another team to retain some salary by giving them a little bit better of a draft pick. Right now for the Flames, and I said this last week, it's just going to be a matter of the guys on the team right now playing better. And that's not really an enticing strategy. It's not easy to say as a fan, hey, what do you want us to do? Well, play better. It's not like saying put this player with this player, go get somebody, bring somebody in. There's not really a lot of solutions, especially this early in the season, because not a lot of teams think they're out of it at this point. Maybe the Ducks are, because I don't think they have a regulation win yet.
They don't have a regulation win.
They're the only team I would say that's probably out of it already. There are a lot of teams that are getting there. I know half of the Blue Jackets are on injured reserve right now. That's another team that's on their way out already, so they should be acting accordingly. But for the most part, a lot of teams think they're still in the mix here. That's why you're not going to see action probably till December, January at the earliest. So realistically for the Flames, it's going to be cleaning up the defense, finding a way to be more consistent on the power play, and getting Markstrom into a rhythm here. If you can get him in an okay rhythm where he's playing 4 and 5 every other day, that will help him get on a roll. Most goalies need to play consistently with a reasonable routine to get into a rhythm where they can go on a heater and make 93% of the saves for a week and a half. It's really hard to get into a good rhythm as a goaltender if you're in a situation where you're playing once on a Tuesday, not again until Friday, then not again until Monday, just because of days off. Not even because they're spelling you with the backup. It's a problem early in the season, especially for a lot of these teams where you're playing against teams that share arenas, that have concerts, that have NBA teams. So scheduling this time of year in a lot of cases, especially for the teams in the United States, it's a mess right now. It's really hard to get a venue to get in a consistent rhythm. And it's part of the reason the schedule is so weird. There are only 3 NHL games tonight on Wednesday as we're recording this. I think actually no, 4. There's 4 games tonight. It's just, and then tomorrow I think there's 11. So it's really difficult for these teams to get into rhythms this early in the season.
Absolutely. And, I think last year you saw Markstrom have such a strong start to the season because Daryl Sutter didn't want to play Vladar.
Yeah.
He basically said, you don't exist until I like actually need you. And we saw that. I think he had like 13 starts.
Yeah.
And we talk about this defense. How many times are we get like don't take a shot every time we mention Zadorov or Chris Tanev because you may actually get sick. But in order for this team to at least find balance, some sort of, regulate this defense, we need Chris Tanev back at
Yes.
100% and less Zadorov because
Yeah.
you just have that nice little increase with a little decrease and you don't have to worry as much. You'll be off of the penalty kill pretty much guaranteed right there, which is helping this team out 1,000,000%. And it's not just, the defense and the offense, it's your goaltender. And you just
Yeah.
mentioned before, hey, this team doesn't do great on the penalty kill. Neither does Jacob Markstrom. So the more you eliminate those problems, the better chances you have of winning. And that's what we need right now. I say we as if I'm out there. But, the Flames, that's what the Flames need.
No, and this isn't even like complaining about Zadorov thing. Zadorov and
No.
Goodbranson were really good last year as the third defensive pair
Yes.
because they didn't have to do as much. And making his workload lesser is going to make Zadorov a better player. If you can, I know they're not going to want to play Tanev and Uyghur together because they're both right-handed, and you don't want to make somebody play on their offside, and that's part of the problem going forward. But at the same time, if you can decrease Zadorov's workload and you have a third pair of him with Michael Stone or Connor Mackey, or if you want to play Uyghur with him, okay, but you got to find a way to less Zadorov will make him more effective. And that's really the way you got to think about it. And it's the same thing with the fourth line. If you want to get better results out of that fourth line, 11, 12 minutes as opposed to 13, 14 minutes. They're better in spurts. Those are role players. The way you think of it is like bench guys on a baseball team or rotation guys in basketball. They're only in the game for certain situations, and that's okay. That's part of the equation of finding a way to win, is using guys in a situation that's going to amplify the skills that they do have.
Exactly. And, like you said, they're role players. They have very specific roles to this team, and they matter. They're part of the puzzle, but just less or more of them depending on who they are. Jonathan Huberdeau is back in this lineup, and it's great to see. He scored his 200th career goal on or against LA. I could not tell you what day of the week that was. I deeply apologize.
I want to say maybe.
No,
they all blend together at this point.
Right. Like at this point, I don't know. But when I saw him playing on the third line or with Trevor Lewis, I was like, what are we doing? We're paying this man like $11 million to play with Trevor Lewis. But it worked.
It's interesting. This is a strategy. I've seen this strategy only like in the EA Sports NHL video games franchise, where you'll go online and you'll play against somebody else, and they will intentionally put a really good player lower in their lineup because the game default plays the lines in the order of overalls. So by putting a really good player on your third line, they're going to match up against the other team's third line, which isn't going to have as good of overalls, and it's going to allow you to exploit that matchup better. I know in years past, I would get Mitch Marner, put him on my third line with like two average, like Dylan Strome type forwards, and just use Mitch Marner and exploit the matchup over and over again. And that's kind of what the Flames did against the Kings, because he was playing against more favorable matchups. John Huberdeau was able to be more comfortable, be a little bit more effective. Trevor Lewis had a really nice goal the other day. That power move that resulted in a goal was sick. And it's awesome when you can get a contribution like that from the lower parts of your lineup. And because the Flames have had such a difficult time scoring consistently, to get those depth contributions is just going to make everybody else more confident in their game. And what's it called? And playing Ruzicka on the first line, he potted a couple of goals. Hey, ride it till it doesn't work. Like you said before, when things work, don't question them. Just ride it until it stops working, and then we can reassess. For now, keep it the lines what they were against the Kings. That worked out very well. You scored 6 goals. I don't know if the Flames had scored 6 goals in their prior 2 games put together. Go from
No.
there. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the thing is like they were able to do that for a reason. And
Yeah.
I can't just sit here and pinpoint exactly what it was. It was
Oh, I have an
multiple.
idea.
Yes.
So, one of the reasons why I think it worked so well for them against the Kings are not a very well-structured defensive
Yeah.
team. They're inclined to just trade chances back and forth, which is why the game was 6-5. And for a team like the Flames that is going to dump the puck in over and over again and try and win pucks in corners, that's going to result in them more often than not being able to control the flow of the game because the other team just wants to trade chances back and forth. And if you're going to be able to pin them in their own zone for extended periods of time, you're going to be able to force them into making turnovers, which is truly the Flames' identity. That is the key for the Flames to be successful with the types of talent they have, is pinning the other team in their own zone and forechecking them into oblivion, which they were able to do. Granted, that game was a little bit more of a track meet than the old dump and chase style where Acklam used to from them, but it shows that they have the capability of scoring goals. Now they got to do it more consistently. And
Right.
that's the difference between a average team and a good team. It's just being good consistently.
Yeah. And that's what we've talked about since you had me on your podcast for the first time, was Daryl Sutter's just repetitive game and just how you can do that and still win. And yes, he is working with very different pieces now, but it's still Sutter's system, and it doesn't have to be perfect through 15 games. This is a long season. I am worried about this East Coast trip because this, again, is not necessarily the Flames' strong point. Last season, this road trip killed them. They started the new year or I guess they played Chicago technically first, but they lost 6-2 against the Panthers, 4-1 against the Lightning, 6-3 against the Hurricanes. That was miserable hockey to watch, and that's why Dan Vladar didn't get as many chances to start last season, because he was in net, I think, for 2 of those games.
Yes.
And that was just brutal, and it was not it was just ugly. It was not a good time.
So let me encourage you a little bit here. Number one, Tampa's off to not a very good start so far to start this season. I think they're in 6th in the Atlantic Division at the moment. In
No, they're
Florida,
in 3rd.
they are? When did that
Yes.
change? I could have swore I looked at the standings yesterday and they were in like 5th or 6th.
No,
Maybe I was looking at the entire East and not the Metro. The Atlantic, excuse me.
No,
I could
I
be
was
wrong.
looking at it yesterday too, and I'm almost positive they're 3rd in the they're 4th in the Atlantic, tied with Florida.
Okay,
with
yeah.
19
And then
points.
Florida, the goaltending situation is entertaining at this point. You don't know if you're going to get the beach ball going in the net or if you're going to get a heater, which always is entertaining to watch. I imagine it's very hellacious as a Panthers fan, but at the very least, the game against Florida will be entertaining. You've got the revenge game factor in both directions because guys on these teams were traded for each other. I'm sure it is going to be played up. I'm sure it is going to be the main talking point during the intermission show and during the pregame show. It'll be entertaining. I don't know how it's going to go. That's why they play the games. But at the very least, I'm sure we'll be entertained.
Yeah, and it's an afternoon game too. It's a 4 p.m. start on the East Coast, so a nice afternoon in Calgary, and that's, I don't know, it's an excuse to crack an afternoon beer, which is always nice. But I don't know. I do think that you're still right about Tampa. I think that they have had kind of, I don't want to say tumultuous start, because
A slow start.
it's not the Tampa that we have seen in years past, and that's what happens when players get older. But I'm interested to see how obviously they'll do in Florida, and then I believe they're going to, no, that was last season. Never mind. They're going to Ottawa. But, we're just going to take this in strides. And again, take as many points as you can and enjoy the momentum that they hopefully build off of from their last 2 wins. I think that they definitely have this in them. They have it in them to win. It's just
they
a
have.
matter of getting the pieces all together.
There's enough talent on this team to be very good. The talent's not the question here. It's a matter of getting the results from the talent, which if anybody's going to do it, it'll be Daryl Sutter. Daryl knows what he's doing. This group is talented. It's just a matter of putting the pieces together in a way that makes sense. Oh, and to answer your question, they do a metropolitan swing. They go to Philly, then
Oh, okay.
Pittsburgh, Philly, Pittsburgh, Washington, then Carolina next week. So Pittsburgh looks awful. That's encouraging.
Yeah.
Washington looks Carolina's pretty good, and Philly is entertaining, but not for the right reasons. So
I can't. Oh, Philly.
hockey's so fun.
It's so much fun. And then when did they visit your Rangers?
They did already.
Yeah, they literally just did, like 2 weeks ago. Again, sorry everyone. My brain's
is tired.
It's very tired, but I won't bore anyone anymore with this podcast.
No,
Nick,
we're not boring. We're entertaining.
No, I think we're fun.
Yes, we're having a good time.
We are. And we could probably sit here for another 2 hours and talk about
Correct.
Zadorov needing less ice time to help himself. He was snubbed again in Sarah Sivian's style power rankings, so that's just fake news. Sarah, I love you. But thank you everyone for tuning in, and I will be back tomorrow. We're going to have some more fun. Today is only Wednesday. Yes, tomorrow is Thursday, so I will be here previewing the battle against Tampa, and then Friday, winners and losers of the week, because it's hockey. There's always a loser and a winner. But you can follow me on Twitter at Jess Belmosto. And Nick, where can everyone find you?
You can follow my personal Twitter at Nick Zararis, Nick Zararis. Make sure you are subscribed to Locked On Flames. Make sure you leave a 5-star review. Please leave a 5-star review. Reviews are very nice.
Yeah, please. I was looking at them earlier and was like, okay. But yeah, leave something nice for the 3rd year anniversary of the show in February. I will put together a giveaway, something nice, because y'all have been through a lot with this show, especially this off season. So again, make sure you're subscribed to Locked On Flames wherever you get your podcasts, and on YouTube as well. And we will reconvene next week.